Good morning, and or good evening, as the case may be. And it's good to see you all here today. So we've been discussing the 8th century work composed by Shantideva called Guide to the Bodhisattva Path. Guides for Bodhisattvas. And associated with the description of bodhisattvas are the 6 paramitas, or perfections. And this work, this composition, this poem, actually, a long poem of Shantideva, is organized according to those. And the 6 perfections are usually translated along the lines of generosity, morality, patience, diligence or energy, meditative concentration, and wisdom. And the chapter we'll be discussing today, or at least starting today, is the chapter entitled Patience. It's sometimes translated forbearance. The first part of the chapter has a lot to do with anger. In fact, you think, as you're reading through it, that the main topic is not so much patience as anger. But anger is considered a problem, an affliction, a klesha, as they say in Buddhist teaching. Not so much that it arises, but in knowing what to do with it. And patience is considered an antidote. So that accounts for why so much of the first part of this chapter has to do with anger. Now, when we say anger in English, we get a picture in our mind of somebody who is just, really angry. Just either, screaming or, really upset. But the Sanskrit word of pratka, which is translated into anger in English, really takes in a lot more. It takes in a whole range of emotions, going all the way up to anger, rage, hatred, these things, but also more common experiences, which are irritation, frustration, impatience. In short, not liking what's going on. Resistance. Not getting what I want. All of that range of emotion that is associated with not getting what you want. And patience, Chanti, the title of the chapter, as translated, Chanti being the Sanskrit word, is somewhat tainted in our language as well. Perhaps from childhood. Perhaps you were told at various times by various adults, be patient, be patient, which was code for sit down and shut up. And as a child, you knew that. So we sometimes associate patience with just being overpowered or suppressed, repressing emotion, putting up with things. But the word chanti takes in also positive aspects. It does refer to forbearance, putting up with things. But it also takes in a more creative response to the situation. Patience is not simply suppression, it is transformation. Working with what arises to turn it into something useful, something beneficial, something skillful. In other words, anger, for instance, can be viewed as useful information. Something is happening that I don't like. But instead of viewing it as simply a trigger to be pulled, which will result in some form of either active or passive vengeance, viewing it as an opportunity for creative resolution, to transform the anger into something else. For instance, compassion. And that transformation, that alchemy is achieved through the catalysts of wisdom and patience. So I'll start with a section from Shantideva's text, chapter 6, very beginning. All the good works gathered in 1,000 ages, such as deeds of generosity and offerings to the blissful ones, a single flash of anger shatters them all. No evil is there similar to anger, no austerity to be compared with patience. Steep yourself, therefore, in patience in various ways, insistently. Those tormented by the pain of anger never know tranquility of mind. Strangers they will be to every pleasure. They will neither sleep nor feel secure. So Shantideva is acquainting us with the fact that anger is actually kind of an unpleasant emotion. It is not pleasurable. Although some people do seem to take pleasure in it at times. In the long run, it's uncomfortable, it's stressful, it's hard on the body. And he's also saying to steep yourself in patience in various ways. And then he goes on throughout the chapter to describe perhaps some of these ways. A little later on, he says, getting what I do not want and all that hinders my desire. In discontent, my anger finds its fuel. From this it grows and beats me down. Therefore, I will utterly destroy the sustenance of this my enemy, referring to anger. My foe who has no other purpose but to hurt and injure me. So come what may, I'll not upset my cheerful happiness of mind. Dejection never brings me what I want. My virtue will be warped and marred by it. If there's a remedy when trouble strikes, what reason is there for dejection? And if there is no help for it, what use is there in being glum? So, in this passage and in subsequent passages, Shantideva refers to anger and hatred being the enemy and not living beings. We'll get into more of that. And some of you may have noticed this last verse, this last stanza. If there's a remedy when trouble strikes, what reason is there for dejection? If there's no help for it, what use is there in being glum? Some of you may associate that with the serenity prayer that some of you may be familiar with, which, by the way, I found out is not like an ancient thing. It was actually composed in the 1930s by the theologist and writer, philosopher Reinhold Niebuhr. The 1930s, of course, was a difficult time in our country and in the world in general. So continuing on, there is nothing that does not grow light through habit and familiarity. Putting up with little cares, I'll train myself to bear with great adversity. Don't I see that this is so with common irritations, bites, and stings of snakes and flies, experience of hunger and of thirst, and painful rashes on my skin, heat and cold, the wind and rain, sickness, prison, beatings. I'll not fret about such things. To do so only aggravates my trouble. So here Shantideva is also talking about just simple forbearance, putting up with things, noticing anger that arises. Of course, nobody likes mosquito bites. I don't know about receiving beatings. That's a whole other level, but Shantideva is advocating that by practicing with smaller irritations, then when larger things arise, you're in better condition to deal with them. Suffering also has its worth. Through sorrow, pride is driven out, and pity felt for those who wander in samsara. Evil is avoided. Goodness seems delightful. I am not angry with my bile and other humors, fertile source of suffering and pain. So, why should living beings give offense? They likewise are impelled by circumstance. If those who are like wanton children are by nature prone to injure others, there's no reason for our rage. It's like resenting fire for being hot. And if their faults are fleeting and contingent, if living beings are by nature mild, it's likewise senseless to resent them. As well be angry at the sky when it is full of smoke. Although it is their sticks that hurt me, I am angry at the ones Although it is their sticks that hurt me, I am angry at the ones who wield them, striking me, but they, in turn, are driven by their hatred. Therefore, with their hatred, I should take offense. So this pratga, or anger, carries with it anger, irritation, rage at living beings as opposed to inanimate objects. Of course, we all experience anger with inanimate objects at times, as senseless as that may be, but we also, this pratga, anger referred to here, is anger against living beings. And Shantideva is making the case that living beings are subject to causes and conditions. They are suffering from hatred, perhaps, or just obliviousness or ignorance or whatever. So if you're going to take offense at something, take offense at their hatred or their obliviousness or their ignorance, but not the person themselves, not the living being themselves. So in a sense, Shantideva is telling us that there are no living being enemies. They don't exist. But these afflictions afflict us all. Now, one could raise a question here. It's a fundamental teaching in Buddhism, that we take responsibility for our actions, that we are moral agents, that we have at least a certain measure of free will. So why should I accept that for myself, but in a sense deny it for others, saying, well, they're just moved by their anger, their causes and conditions. It's too bad, but they're the ones who are suffering. In other words, why do we demand responsibility for our own actions, but not apply the same responsibility to others for their actions? Well, I think this is a question, the whole question of agency, free will, and personal responsibility have uh, have occupied people's minds for centuries, for millennia. And I don't think we've worked that all out yet. But I think one thing is clear: we don't really know for sure to what extent people are free agents and to what extent they are responding to causes and conditions at any given time. We don't even know for sure that there's such a thing as free agency. So I interpret this as a device that Shantideva is offering to just assume that when others act in these ways that are displeasing, for whatever reason, that they are responding to causes and conditions. And if there's any way that you can help them respond more creatively or more constructively, more beneficially, then make an attempt to do so. But responding with anger is not beneficial. And finally, I'll read this passage. Those who harm me rise against me. It's my karma that has summoned them. And if through this these beings go to hell, is it not I who bring ruin to them? Because of them, and through my patience, all my many sins are cleansed and purified. But they will be the ones who, thanks to me, will have the long-drawn agonies of hell. Therefore, I am their tormentor. Therefore, it is they who bring me benefit. Thus, with what perversity, pernicious mind, will you be angry with your enemies? This is sort of an extension of that last suggestion that Shantideva had for dealing with anger, to actually turn the tables on the whole thing. That by their expression, if somebody's angry with you or doing something harmful against you, that they are the ones who are suffering, and you're the one who has the opportunity to through patience, to gain wisdom and compassion. So really, he's making the claim that we are the ones who are causing them harm, not the reverse. I don't know if you find that compelling. But I think Shantideva is helping us deal with the very common experience, the daily experience, the hourly experience of irritation, impatience, frustration, things not going how we want. I'll conclude here with a quote from a contemporary Buddhist practitioner and scholar, C.W. Huntington, who died recently. He's commenting on the paramitas, the 6 perfections. And what he says about patience is this: patience is the cornerstone of a way of life based on insight and attention, rather than manipulation and control. Patience is the cornerstone of a way of life based on insight and attention, rather than manipulation and control. So I think we'll stop with that. And it raises, I think, some questions. I think there's all kinds of advice about dealing with anger, including, punching pillows and that sort of thing, and expressing your anger and the dangers of repressing anger, etc. So all of that is in the cultural mix. But I wanted to at least offer some of these thoughts about Shantideva's view of anger which I think are in accord with the other Buddhist teachings. I wonder what questions it raises in your mind. And I think I'll just leave it with that, and we'll stop there for the breakout rooms. Thank you very much for listening today.